Welcome to Real Estate 360 Live with Ryan Sloper, the trusted name in real estate radio. Now, here's Ryan Sloper.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Real Estate 360 Live. For those of you not familiar with the podcast, my guest and I will cover all angles of real estate, from interest rates to the economy to what's happening in Washington. Obviously, we talk a lot about what's taking place with the Federal Reserve. We all know, and we've been talking about this for some time, that they just decided to end QE, or QE3, that is. And we'll talk today about what that really means. Does that actually mean that we're moving in the right direction? I don't think so. But we will dive further into that. We'll talk also about Hillary Clinton's comments, which, if you guys haven't heard what she said, she it's pretty spectacular. It almost is going to rival Gen Z that we talked about last week. And for those of you that didn't catch that episode last week, it's definitely one to load onto your iPhone. If you get a chance, go over to iTunes, download, subscribe, share to Real Estate 360 podcast. And if you don't have an MP3 player or iPhone, you can always go over to the website and stream the show directly from the website at realestate360live.com. It's realestate360live.com. On the right-hand side, there's an Ask a Question button for any questions or topics that you would like us to cover on future episodes. So joining me on our panel, as he does each and every week, to discuss the many issues, is Louis Camrosano. Louis is a former school teacher, a former attorney, and a former general manager of a major real estate portal. He's often cited in the media as a real estate industry expert, and Forbes, Wall Street Journal, Fox Business, U.S. News, MSN, and numerous others. Louis, how you doing today?
Doing grand, Ryan. How are you?
I'm doing well, sir. Thanks for asking. So I guess what we'll start off is, last week we kind of talked, and I obviously asked you what your prediction was, what the Fed was going to do at this meeting. And obviously you said, continue the trend to just go ahead and shut QE3 down, right? Because obviously they want to send signs to the market that we don't need to do this anymore. We're done. Look at everybody else. Everybody else is worried about deflationary concerns, and, we've got our house in order. And there couldn't be anything further from the truth, of course. I'm joking. But wanted to get your take, obviously, on that meeting, what their comments were. For the kind of the short verse of what took place at that meeting is that they obviously kept interest rates unchanged at 0 to 0.25%. They ended QE, the Treasury and agency mortgage-backed security purchases, which is basically they have been buying, at one point up to $85 billion a month of Treasuries and mortgage-backed securities, which really put downward pressure on interest rates, kept them extremely low. Now, everybody thinks that just because they stopped QE, that all of a sudden, they don't have a balance sheet. I believe that the balance sheet is worth somewhere around $4 trillion, Louis. Is that correct? Somewhere around there?
Yeah, right.
So they have an existing balance sheet of stuff that hasn't gone anywhere, because who's going to buy that?
Well, they're going to roll it over, too. So it's
right.
not like they've stopped. I mean, there's a lot of maturing bonds that they're still going to reinvest. It's not like they've stopped, and the balance sheet will increase just as a result of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So they'll roll over. They'll continue to buy these things, and you can kind of tell, because the way interest rates have stayed low. It also helps that the Wall Street and private markets are actually following in lockstep with everything the Fed does. So they have basically the same mentality to keep doing whatever the Fed's doing. The rates, the Fed had also said at the meeting that we're going to keep rates low for a considerable period of time. This is the same BS language that they continue to use. What that essentially means, considerable means forever, or until it completely blows up, because they can't say anything else. They figure if we use the word considerable, then it'll keep the markets on their toes. But the people on Wall Street aren't dummies, okay? They just have to kind of laugh at this and just say, you know what, I'm glad they just continue to use that language. That'll keep it propped up for, right, at least another year or two. They came out, the remarks were labor slack is improving in the market there.
Of course.
Okay. Household income is improving. Says energy costs will keep inflation low on a temporary basis. So this is kind of the gist of the comments that took place at the Fed and at the meeting, and, it's just so much of the same. It makes my stomach just churn the more I have to read this, but I did, want to point out that I thought that it was interesting, Lewis, that was on 10/29, 10/30, which was yesterday. There was a report out for third quarter GDP that hit 3.5% when the estimates were calling for 3%. Now, this is what I always talk about. I mean, everybody says that I'm like some sort of, conspiracy theorist here, talking about the way these reports just magically come out and hit different numbers. But it is interesting that Fed meeting was 10/29, 10/30. GDP hits 3.5 versus estimates of 3.0. So that is a report that then goes to kind of help their cause, right?
Yep.
There's always everything is just so perfect. It's just, and that's why I talk, it's just masterful manipulation of all markets, the media, and they can kind of control things as long as this takes place. Lewis, okay, obviously you said that they were going to end QE3. Now we've obviously come to that point, and you said obviously they're going to continue to roll stuff over, so it's not like that they've really ended anything. They have a $4 trillion balance sheet. But where do we go from here? Like, what's the next move? Because I honestly, from the bird's eye view here, and looking at all these businesses and dealing with consumers on a day-to-day basis, people aren't able to take advantage of the low interest rate environment. The rich are getting richer. The middle class is being suppressed down to basically the low end of the whole. And I feel like that's really what they want to happen. But more than that, they don't really have any other option. Raise interest rates, then you have a situation where the government can't even pay interest on its own debt. So we've created this massive, just I don't even know what to call it. There's a word for it, but I won't use it on the show. And I just want to get your take as to, considerable period of time. What the hell does that mean?
Okay. Well, first of all, here's what they're going to do. They're going to continue to grade their own tests. That's what I just thought of when I'm listening to you. They can't fail. They will make up whatever narrative they want to match what they're trying to say. So for example, to the person who's paying attention, you would say, okay, so the GDP is good, unemployment is below your target, everything seems to be fine. So why do you need to keep rates low for a considerable period of time? Well, don't worry about that. That's what makes the stock market happy. Oh,
right.
Okay, I get it. The GDP comes in good, Ryan. Okay, why did it come in good? Does anyone care? No, it doesn't matter. It was over 3%. It beat expectation. It was mostly military spending. How convenient. Correct. They managed to ramp up military spending to go get those ISIS guys. So now the GDP is in good shape, verifies, validates that the Fed says everything is okay. And we predicted last week, spot on, we said that if they quit, that the reason they would quit was because they wanted to send a signal that, look, it all worked, everything is fine. Oh, and by the way, it does coincide with the fact that there's an election on next week. So we want to send a signal to the markets that we did QE, we're doing grand, everything is fine, and the GDP is growing, and we'll just stop, just like that. We print $4 trillion, we walk away, the rest of the world in shambles, but somehow we're doing great. And then they get the validation cheerleaders on TV, on CNBC, robust economy, you get the initial jobless claims come in, and of course they start crowing all over that about how there's improved job market, just like the Fed says, but, they'll keep rates low. You've got people saying that it's strength in the labor market because of this. And meanwhile, housing starts, pending applications, are 19-year low. There's one thing about this economy, Ryan, just one, that you could say is doing well, and that's the stock market. At the first hint that the Fed isn't going to be accommodative, it crashes. So they trot out these guys like Bullard to say, we might do QE because, because things might go wrong in the economy. They're not wrong now. And everyone's like, okay. Then they go back and they buy stocks. It is a farce. You can use an F word, Ryan. It's okay to say farce, that they manipulate the economy and that these people go along with it because it's against your self-interest to say, no, things aren't well. These companies' earnings really are a mirage. Everything isn't really doing well. Why would you do that? The stock market's going higher. Real estate, forget that. We made our money in that 2 or 3 years ago. We don't have to worry about real estate. It's a lot easier to trade shares. So you've got this entire narrative that just plays into itself with the dropping initial jobless claims. And one guy says, story's the same, layoffs are low, labor market improving. And we know that initial jobless claims, the data doesn't mean anything. It just means fewer people in the labor force, fewer people left to get fired, more people getting part-time jobs. And more people getting part-time jobs fits into their narrative. It means more jobs. They just throw more jobs onto the pile and the non-farm payroll, and they say, see, more jobs, fewer people getting fired. This is a great economy. GDP at 3.5%, more military spending. They never highlight the underlying components of these numbers to show the real state of the economy. All they care about is saying that the Fed ends QE, sends upbeat signals on the economy. They've finished the taper, and let's go to the polls and vote Democrat in November because we've done wonderful. Now, of course, I mean this is basically what you're saying. We're asking, what's next? Well, this is their credibility taper. This is Japan just boosted up. I don't know if you saw it overnight. They just said, you know what, we haven't done enough. We're going to do more stimulus. And they just doubled or tripled down. Harvard, I don't even, they talk about trillions. I think they're about quadrillion yen that they're printing. The United States isn't going to sit back and allow that to happen. They're not going to let the dollar strengthen and strengthen and strengthen. They're going to have to get back to a face palm when they realize, we've got to get back on the QE, not because we want to, and not because we didn't mean it when we said it that we were going to finish QE3. I mean, we meant it when we finished QE1. We meant when we finished QE2, and we meant it when we finished QE3. And really, we're done. We're not going to do it anymore. Of course they are. But the problem is these people believe it. They're like, that's it. They had these celebrations. QE is over. This is a historic event. Yeah, until the next time they start it up and stop it again.
Right. What I find interesting, so obviously the Fed is just a complete show at this point. But we've got Greenspan out yesterday talking to the Council on Foreign Relations. He's talking about QE and the Fed's bond buying program, which aimed to lower unemployment and spur stronger economic growth, which has fell short of its goals. He's acknowledging that this program doesn't work, guys. Okay. Now, the irony with all this is the same guy that basically created a bubble when he was at his post, right? And he goes much, much deeper because at, I believe it was like the New Orleans Investment Conference, he talks about the Fed's balance sheet as a pile of tinder. And gold is as good.
He could have used another word. He could have used an S word.
An S word. You're right. The other four-letter word.
No, he could have said it was a shambles.
No, that's true. True. He said gold is a good place to put your money these days, as it will rise measurably in the next 5 years. Now, this is somebody that's pretty smart, I would assume, right? He knows what's going on. You know what he wants to be? He wants to be the guy that got out of office and then all of a sudden got something right, because he couldn't get it right when he was in office, right?
Yeah, he had it right before he got into office because he said gold is what stands in the way of an insidious process of a reckless monetary policy. Then he gets in and he's like, well, we don't have gold, so I can be as reckless as they want. Then he gets out of office and he's back to saying, yeah, these guys, Ryan, they create a problem. We talked about it last week, and then they point the fingers at everyone else but themselves when they were the main perpetrators of the crime. Yep. Janet Yellen, we've got, what was she talking about? Wealth inequality. Yeah, because of QE. And you promoted it your entire time on the Fed. And now Greenspan's talking about, reckless monetary policy. That's what he did. It's the pot calling the kettle black. I mean, and the thing is, it's not even low information voters. It's no information. They don't even just whatever you tell them, they say, oh yeah, that like he said, yeah, he's right. Let him fix it. No, he's the one who ruined it.
And we definitely are in the age of no information, because if anybody actually was listening to the crap that's coming out of some of these politicians' mouths, out of the Fed chairs' mouths, you know what I mean? The Hillary Clinton.
Skip the Fed, go to Hillary. Exactly. Talk about Hillary Clinton the other day.
Okay, yeah. So Hillary Clinton is following in the footsteps of Obama, of Elizabeth Warren, and basically, I mean, the campaign manager has to be like holding his head as she's saying some of these things, because I can't. He should be fired if he's the one that let her trot out there and say these things, right?
Why? They like that. They cheered her. They'll cheer anything.
Well,
she can tell them the gas chambers are behind them. On your way out, pick up your ticket, and they cheer.
Right. And, you know, and the interesting thing is that it's like you said, it's the age of no information, because even a low information person could figure out that this is complete crap. She comes out and basically says, don't let anybody tell you that it's corporations and businesses that create jobs. You know, that old theory, trickle-down economics, that has been tried. That has failed. It has failed rather spectacular. One of the things my husband says when people say, what did you bring to Washington? He says, I brought arithmetic. Wow, Hillary. So let me ask you, I got arithmetic too. And when you were dead,
now you got math.
Oh yeah, I got math. Well,
can't say arithmetic.
I have some math skills, Louis, and I'm just curious to ask Hillary, when she was on the verge of being broke or was broke, what was it that pulled her out of that? Was it the free market that gave her $13 million book advance? What was that, Louis? I'm kind of confused here. Who determined the rate that Bill Clinton would get per speech that he gives? Was it the government that decided that, or was it the free market that decided that? I don't know. I mean, I'm completely confused here. Oh, hold on. Businesses don't create jobs. That sounds rather interesting, because I'm not really sure how they get there. You know, and
don't let anyone tell you that. I mean, you should. First of all, you should already know that businesses create jobs. But she's telling you, unlearn. If you might have learned something along the way in your no information life, unlearn it, because there's people out there trying to tell you the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. Don't let anyone tell you that, Ryan. Because I'm Hillary Clinton, and I'm here to tell you that government causes the sun to rise in the east and causes it to set in the west. And anyone who tells you otherwise, this nonsense about the Earth's rotation, they've tried to explain things that way. It's failed spectacularly. That's what she's saying.
Yeah, you know, and this goes back to Obama's speech in 2012 where he said, you just built that in relation to small business owners in America. Essentially, that the government is the one that builds everything. Where does the money come from? Where does it come from? It comes from taxpayers and businesses, right? Like, and even when the government gets that tax money and they decide to go and build infrastructure, they don't physically build the road. It's the businesses that are building the roads.
They contracted it. Ryan, the difference is there is an argument for Lizzie Warren's, and it's wrong, but on its face, it's not as wrong as what Hillary said. What Hillary says, there's no defense of. When Lizzie Warren and Obama said you didn't build that, they're claiming, because on its face it looks logical, that there's a lot of things and services that businesses rely upon that help them get their business done. So they basically set up a straw man and say, well, you couldn't do it without these other things. Now, that's true. They couldn't do it without some of these other things. It doesn't mean, though, that they wouldn't get done if the government didn't do them, because it's not like someone else can't build a road, someone else can't provide protection, someone else can't educate the workers. But their point is the government does those things, and in their mind, the government does them best. And by the way, we need to spend more money on those things so we get reelected. But put that aside. That is a bad argument. But when you say, don't let anyone tell you governments don't create jobs, that's 100% stupidity. Or maybe she's right. You know, Solyndra didn't create any jobs, so maybe Hillary Clinton knows what she's talking about. Of course, businesses create jobs. Governments the only kind of job a government creates is a post office job, a teacher job, a fireman job, police job, or these ridiculous jobs at Solyndra. Otherwise, the economy is based on businesses setting themselves up in order to provide products and services. That's how the jobs get created. She may not like that, but the government coffee shop and the government bread store, they are not where jobs are created. So she's 100% wrong. The other one is kind of clever to say you didn't build that. You know, that's the whole "it takes a village."
Right.
That's Hillary's book. But for Hillary's book, it should be It Takes an Idiot if you want to believe that businesses and companies don't create jobs.
Yeah, well,
and then she teaches, she talks with this arrogance, like, don't let anyone tell you. Well, yeah, we tried that. Yeah, the Industrial Revolution, the Internet boom, those are all government companies.
Yeah, well,
she's not even rewriting history. She's rewriting an Onion story that got thrown away because it was too ridiculous. But the danger, Ryan, is people are listening to her and clapping like seals.
Correct. But you know what? They know exactly what they're doing, once again, just like Obama did. And they're going to cater to the low information person or no information person, as you've labeled. I think that's could be one of the new phrases for us, is the no information person or people. But there's how many millions of people on food stamps right now? It's probably, up around 60, 65 million, something like that.
We should say, don't let anyone tell you. Government doesn't create food stamps. Businesses do. We tried tricking people into thinking that you get that Social Security check from the government. You don't. And this is actually not a bad argument, because you really don't get it from the government. You get it from the taxes that are generated from the revenue that the government takes from the companies to pay your Social Security. So that would be kind of a clever argument to make, is don't let anyone trick you that the government gives you all these benefits, because they don't.
Yeah.
The companies give them to you.
Well, and then you figure why Romney lost the last election is that he wasn't catering to the no information person, right? Well, unfortunately, there's a lot more of those people out there. So right off the bat...
Well, and there's also a lot of people who claim to have a lot of information, like Hillary, who get a smug sense of satisfaction to, scoff at that when somebody tries to make sense and tell people the truth.
And Hillary, and I've told many people this already, that she's pretty much a shoo-in for the candidacy for the next election in 2016. And anybody that thinks otherwise, short of her just something happening to her, she's going to get it. And don't think that she's not going to trot her husband around the entire country. She can win the election on that, okay? Just because...
Oh, she did. Yeah, she says, I was there, she says. I was there when Bill Clinton created jobs by raising the minimum wage. That was the other thing she said, that the minimum wage creates jobs. Because the proof is, when she was president, the minimum wage was raised and jobs were created. No, the minimum wage was raised during a time when jobs were created, and it didn't destroy that many jobs. And again, you need some level of ability to process information to even think about that. And who she's talking to is, she basically just points at something, makes it a declarative statement, and everyone says, yep, arithmetic. Like, no, that was verbal. That had nothing to do with math. Oh, it doesn't matter. She's right, like she said. When do I clap?
Yeah, I mean, we have hit an all-time low. I'm convinced of that. These are the comments that are coming out of people's mouths. I mean,
and no one complains. And you don't see Chris Matthews or any of the other cheerleaders saying, okay, I got to be fair here. She's gone too far. She's not making any sense.
Right. Enough is enough, right? Give me some answers. What are you talking about, lady? Right? Like, why would you say such a thing? How could you say such a thing? Did you get your wealth from the government? Where did it come from?
Yeah, like I said, Liz Warren and Obama saying you didn't build that, that's the argument for government provides services, government should provide services, and companies rely on those services. So don't get all excited, companies, that you're big and strong and you do this all on your own. Bad argument, but you can understand where it comes from. But just to say that they don't create jobs, and they don't, it's like saying they don't employ people and they don't give out paychecks.
Yeah. And honestly, they can. I don't know what their argument most for the next election is going to be. This whole jobs situation.
You don't need an argument. She just has to say, "Hi, Hillary Clinton doesn't matter. Bill Clinton, math, arithmetic,
arithmetic
for you." Helping the people of America. There's something. Well, what hope and change? I mean, even Bill Obama rejected the hope and change, and he's no dummy. He rejected the hope and change moniker for his campaign as being kind of empty and too simplistic. He underestimated the American voter. They love that stuff, hope and change.
Yeah.
Hillary Clinton can just say Clinton. That's all she has to say. And people are like, I recognize the word Clinton, president. Yeah, okay, and they go and vote for her.
Right, and so where we're at now, and we can relate this back to the markets and real estate and everything else, is that okay? So what is the media focusing on now? You know what they're focusing on? They're focusing on all the other countries. They're focusing on Spain and Germany and Japan and China, and that they're doing worse. That they have inflationary concerns, and we just came off of QE, so it looks like we're in a prime position for next year again, for 2015. You know what I mean? You know what? It doesn't matter what takes place in these elections right here coming up. I honestly doesn't matter if the Republicans gain back control or not, because as long as Obama's in office, nothing's changing. Nothing's
That's not going to challenge him.
No,
right, that's a childish argument. What do kids say when two kids get in trouble? Someone else did it too. So the rest of the countries are having trouble. Yeah, okay, but they're having worse trouble than us.
There was an article in, I believe it was The Economist magazine, Lewis, about a lot of people that have been kind of pointing fingers at Germany for wanting to maintain the austerity that they have going on right now. Do you think that it's any coincidence that they've really taken that stance? I think that that's kind of a play out there. The euro is going to be in desperate trouble at some point. I think Germany knows that. And
well, Switzerland knows it too. That's why Switzerland has been propping up the euro by buying euros in order to keep the peg of the Swiss franc to the euro. That's why they want to have this Save Our Swiss Gold referendum, Ryan, because they want to restrain the central bank from running up its balance sheet to buy garbage euro assets. And they say, well, if you have to have 20% of your assets in gold, well, you're going to have to start selling that stuff and buying back the gold that you sold over the last 10, 15 years. And, of course, the Swiss National Bank, they say, that's not good. Then we can conduct monetary policy. And people are like, yeah, we don't want you to conduct monetary policy. Because to you, conducting monetary policy is having a higher debt to GDP than any other country on the planet. And that's ridiculous for Switzerland, which is supposed to be, some kind of prudent, strong currency banking country, to have the most reckless central bankers on the planet. This whole thing that we've got to be engaged with Europe is ridiculous. Right. Engaging with Europe is basically given to the poor countries who can never scrap together a drachma or a lira or a scudo or other pesos they have, and making the other countries pay for them. And that's what Germany and Switzerland are there for. And the people, why are we doing this? Oh, right, Europe.
I mean,
it's ridiculous that you're not allowed to associate with your own country, because somehow that would be kind of anachronistic. It would be jingoistic. It would be a sign of kind of maybe you're low information, you're nationalistic, you're right wing, you're nationalist, whatever. But it's okay to identify with euro. Euro's fine. It's a bigger area. Like, you can be American, you can be European, but you can't be German. You can't be Scottish. You got to be part of the United Kingdom.
Yeah, and in case anybody hasn't been paying attention, the proof is in the pudding with the monetary policy. You don't have to look any further than the United States, right? But you just look at what's taken place over the last 6 years at this point, and
it worked. That's what the point is now. Look. Keynes won. He's on the cover of Bloomberg or one of these goofy magazines. Look, you see, all you got to do is print money. We made a mistake since 1913 or 19, whenever the Fed got started. We should have been printing money from day one, and we never even had any of these problems, Ryan.
Right.
Look how quickly we solve. Everything is solved. Everything's fixed.
Yeah, but we know that they're not fixed, because when we have mortgage interest rates, even had a client the other day that could potentially $1 million property or so, that he could put 10% down. All you need is a 720 score, and you could essentially get I'm making rates up here, but low 4% range on that mortgage. And this is probably somebody that's been renting for a long time, that they probably make over $250,000 a year. So this is not your average Joe. But, you know, there's programs out there. And my point is that the programs are out there, but they're only really service or help a minute few, right? And so those few are typically located in your major metropolitan areas that, you know, maybe have two incomes, maybe both of them maybe have some sort of government contractor jobs, or they own a business. They own that maybe is catered to the rich by no coincidence. The businesses that are thriving now, as we mentioned on other shows, are businesses that are catering to the upper class, because who has all the money? What did this monetary policy create?
Hillary and Bill Clinton.
Yeah, it created a division of class, separation of classes, and as long as the monetary policy continues, that will maintain. Stock market.
And they'll, as long as it maintains, the people who create the policy will complain about the policy.
Right. They create, and you know, who was it? Ted Cruz came out the other day and is now ranting and raving about audit the Fed again. How many times have we heard this audit the Fed mantra, right? That I believe, you know, Ron Paul was huge on it. He got buried. If I remember correctly, he got buried. And Ted Cruz, I mean, he's making this attempt to audit the Fed. Now, does it make sense to audit the Fed? Well, you wouldn't like what you found out.
Well, does it even make sense to have a Fed? And does it make sense to have a Fed that allows monetization of debt, which is basically saying we can print money to borrow money from ourselves? That's not the purpose of a central bank. A central bank is only supposed to provide a backstop to save the banking system and provide liquidity for bank failures. It's not meant to prop up the stock market. It's not meant to prop up the international monetary system, the IMF, or to give the United States government access to cheap capital to borrow money to spend it on stuff to get politicians elected. And in fact, Greenspan said, another slip he made, or honesty, he said, when was the Fed ever independent? The whole argument why you can't audit them, the whole argument why you can't question what they do is because they claim to be independent. And he let slip, no, they're not independent. Basically, he said that they tell us what to do. Now, who knows if that's true or not, but again, it's another contradiction that he put out there.
Yeah, because there was a lot of questioning that they were funding some of these social programs. And that's what we would find out if the Fed was actually audited, is that people would realize that the Fed has their hands, and how many backroom deals are they actually doing all over the world? Right?
Here's a question, Ryan. Even if you audit them, do you really think there's an audit trail there in a lot of these instances?
Oh, they lose their files just like the IRS did.
They probably don't even create the file, is my point.
Yeah. Well, and then, you know, what's interesting is Yellen trots out, and, you know, she says the reason why she is not in favor of an audit is because she wants to keep politics out of monetary policy. That's
why she gets up there and starts talking about wealth inequality is a political issue.
Yeah.
Supporting people who don't have jobs and the unemployed. That's a political class that's unemployed. That's a political issue. She doesn't know what she's not even credible on intellect or looks. Not that looks matter, but you put the two together and you look at her and you say, okay, who rolled her in here?
Who let her in here? Right?
No, exactly.
I mean, and if we go back, like, where are the the United States is supposed to be this, you know, country of you know, freedoms and ideas and all these big things, but where are the great ideas? Like, what, you know what our great ideas are these days? Is that businesses don't bring in jobs. Okay?
You don't need great ideas if you have people. You have Hillary Clinton and you have a Fed that has produced spectacular monetary policy that has fixed everything. You know, they couldn't have done a better job, Ryan. That's what they're saying. Look what they did. It's masterful.
It's masterful to the point where our next great idea is that Gen Z is bullish on home ownership, right? Okay,
yeah, you know what? I came up with a slogan, Ryan. Remember they're going to give up their iPhones so they can buy a home?
Yep.
Phones for homes.
Phones for homes.
So here's the program. The government gives you the money to buy a phone. That'll take cell phone prices up to about $3,000 or $4,000 a piece. You get a few of those going. You then sell your phones. Now you have enough money to buy a home because you sell 3 or 4 of them. You got yourself a tidy $15,000-$20,000. You can now put a deposit down. And if you're really a Gen Z entrepreneur, you kind of get into the secondary market of these phones, and you eventually get enough money just to pay cash by selling phones for homes.
I like that. It has a good ring to it, and I could definitely see the government wasting some money on that program.
I think it's like
right?
the home builders don't build homes.
No.
The government does. Because without these programs, you couldn't shelter yourself, you couldn't feed yourself. In fact, you couldn't do anything if there wasn't for the government. Because the government understands arithmetic.
And
and you don't.
Right. Yeah, I mean, what's our trade deficit now? 14 trillion or something like that?
What difference does it matter? When the math gets too hard, that's when she'll trot out. What difference does it make?
Yeah, it's just another zero, right? It's just another zero. And it's just much the same about the monetary policy. It's just another zero. And then it's just another month. It's just another year. Who cares?
Now they have credibility. Here's what's going to happen. Because it works so well, now there's no danger. If there's a problem next time, there already is, but the cracks show a little more, they'll do QE and they'll say, well, what's the problem? Why would gold go up? Why would silver go up? Why would people be worried about all? Because we've done it before and see it worked. Yeah. That's what they're trying to get us ready for is QE is not a danger. Debts don't matter. Deficits don't matter. Printing money is fine. In fact, I don't even know why we stopped in the first place. Why did we do that? That was stupid. Look, it worked, and it was only $4 trillion. And if it worked, $4 trillion is good. Why not $8 trillion?
Right. Well, and it's back to the Greenspan thing. The fact that he can come out and now all of a sudden be truthful because when he had his post as Fed chairman, he couldn't be truthful. Now he can be truthful because he knows that they're doomed. And guess what? He's going to get the credit when S hits the fan, right?
No, you know what? He got the credit. Remember, he was the maestro because when things are going well, when you put in this artificial monetary stimulus and you juice up the patient and the patient's walking around like he's fine and you know he's going to collapse the second the cameras go off of him. He got all that credit. It's just that he stayed a little too long. He should have gone out a year earlier. Actually, he did get out. When he left, things are still fine.
Right.
And that's how they play this game. They get the credit for, and then when they're done, they start blaming the system, and then it collapses, and they say, "See, I told you." It's like, but you got the credit while it was working, and now you're saying it doesn't work, and you told us so.
Right.
Even though you did it.
He caught all the flack, remember, at the end that he had created the bubble, and then so basically he went into hiding for a few years, and then all of a sudden he came back out and now explained what was taking place and now what was ahead, and everybody wants to listen to him again. And at the end of the day, Louis, you and I have been talking about gold and like why obviously it would make sense to have holdings in gold and silver because, the dollar, I mean, okay, is it really strong? Is it worth anything really? I mean, it's every day. The more that they continue to manipulate, masterfully manipulate. I mean, once again, you and I can't really say for certain what's going to happen because we don't have the ability to figure out how many times they can continue to create a new program with a different name and everybody be okay with it, right? Like, we don't know how much longer this can go on. Now, I've always made the statement that it's not going to happen on Obama's dime, and I probably would want to say that maybe it's not going to happen for the first few years on Hillary's time. Now, that would be, of course, I'm assuming she's going to get office, but I think she is. And because everything has become so predictable, Louis, right? Like, you can honestly wake up every day and know that there's going to be some sort of crazy headline that we're going to get a giggle out of, right?
Yeah, but the real wild card you have to throw in there, and this is not a wild card in the way you might think. It's not like if Ron Paul gets in, things are going to change. What they may determine is that people are kind of fed up with this, and they do see through Hillary's BS. So let's bring this Rand Paul guy in, because that'll calm a lot of people down, just like having the first African-American president calm people down. And then he just did exactly what Bush did, but, okay, well, at least we have the first African-American president. That's the idea about bringing Hillary forward is, people aren't going to complain because if, you criticize a woman, you're showing bad form. Let's bring her in. But people might be fed up with that. Rand Paul is perfect because on his surface it looks like he's independent and he's like his dad. When really he plays ball with all the big-wig politicians, Mitch McConnell and the rest of them. So as long as he gives them what they want, and of course the longer he's in there, the more they'll start to control him, that may be who gets to be president next. Doesn't seem likely, but if the public, if they read the public, and by 2015, 2016, is really fed up with all this. Like, come on, not another Clinton-Bush matchup.
Yeah.
He's acceptable. Even though you would think he's not, he is, because all he has to do is change his position. It sounds like he is on the military. You know, he starts talking about bombing places every now and then. They're like, okay, yeah, that's fine. You can have your libertarian views, but as long as you continue the bombing and you don't go after the Fed, then you'll be fine. And then people think, well, our man is in. Just like African Americans thought, Obama, he's our man, he's in. He's not their man. He hasn't done anything for anyone.
Well,
and just like the libertarians will be tricked, they'll think, oh, our guy got in. No, he didn't.
Well, I told you that you have to cater to the low information person as the Democrats do. So I told you before that that's exactly how they could win the election. But are they smart enough to actually come out and basically essentially lie to the public and say, we're going to double up on your entitlements and your food stamps and everything else, and guess what? We're gonna also cut taxes. We're going to do all these things, right? Just basically throw it all out there and tell them they're going to have a little bit of everything. Then people would vote for him if they think that that's what
every president has a history of doing the exact opposite of what he said when he came in.
Yep.
Right? I mean, you go right down the line from Reagan's going to cut all the agencies. He's going to balance the budget. He didn't do any of that stuff. He's going to put school prayer in. Nixon was going to be tough on communism. He goes to China. I mean, they all do stuff that's the exact opposite, because if they'd said what they were going to do, they never would have been elected. Obama, I'll close Guantanamo Bay day one. Of course you will. It's still open. I mean, that got people all excited. This is not who we are as a people. Remember that? He gave a sanctimonious speech about how Guantanamo Bay was a stain on America. It's not who we are. We don't torture. And then he says, I'm good at killing people. And he gets away with it because people still think of him as this guy. He won the Nobel Prize. And that's not a cut on Obama. That's all of every president. I'm actually writing a book on this. Every president has done exactly the opposite. What about Thomas Jefferson? Small government, got to follow the Constitution. He writes a check for the Louisiana Purchase on his own.
Well, but this is going to require the Republicans to actually be smart about who their voters.
Well, what lie they're going to tell is basically what they have to.
That's what I mean. What are they going to say that's going to get the voter that they didn't get the last time? And I don't know if they're smart enough to do that.
Yeah, what Romney said was the dumbest thing. When he said, there's 47% of the people who rely on the government, so I can't get them to vote for me. Like, no, you just wrote them off. So now you're struggling over 3% of the voters. You lose. Yeah,
you just lost the campaign right there. But he was actually being honest. He had an honest comment that came out of his mouth, right? And when you're honest in politics, you never win. So that's why Hillary, what came out of her mouth about business, she didn't really believe that, Lewis, which is why she always having to backtrack her comments, because if politicians actually talk about what they believed, because she has to believe that she likes the free market and businesses, because of course she's getting paid handsomely for writing books and for giving speeches. She doesn't really believe what she's saying, but when you don't believe what you're saying, you're going to be all over the place, which is why you're going to have to constantly retract statements or change statements. You're not talking about ideas that could actually help our country and the economy. No.
Right, you're being hard on her. She was dead broke when her and Billy left the White House.
No,
dead broke. She had houses across the country that she couldn't pay for. Come on.
Yeah, that's a load of crap. She wasn't broke. She wasn't nowhere.
Dead broke.
It didn't even matter. Bill could roll out of bed and roll into a speech for $200,000 any day of the week. They weren't broke.
Depends on what your definition of is. People pay to hear that again, right?
Yeah, was she leveraged? Maybe she was leveraged, but she wasn't broke.
No, that's exactly what she was. They had too many houses, too many expenses, and they didn't have enough money coming in because the presidency doesn't pay enough. They're actually, the reason they were dead broke when they left the White House was they couldn't do enough of the chicanery while they were in the White House. They had to wait till they had to get out, and there was a lag before they could make enough money.
Yeah, well, they typically say that every president, right?
Think about it. Clinton would go give a speech on the White House lawn and go, I should be getting paid for this. He's only getting $400,000 a year. Every time he gives a speech, that's what Obama should do. He should get up there and say, now, before we start, I want to make sure that everyone here is paid their their fee to the press corps, because that's basically what happens once they leave.
Right.
Think about how many speeches the president gives when he's president, if he was paid for those speeches.
Oh, yeah, I mean, shit.
And that's what's going through their mind, like, State of the Union again for free? Come on. State of the Union, what's that? How many? 435 people in Congress speaking to them? 10,000 each? Do the math. I should be getting paid millions of dollars for this. I should be doing this on my own dime. $400,000 doesn't pay for anything. Okay, I get to ride in Air Force One to Martha's Vineyard, but come on, this isn't really cutting it.
Yeah, I mean, I got golf the next 4 days, and
green tea.
And it's. I mean, what's sad about this is that you would think that there at some point in time there would be somebody that comes along that's innovative, that has good ideas, that can actually relate to the general public, and I think that where we're at, we're so far gone that there's really only somebody that's going to come into office to really keep this going, maintain what it is.
That's the role. That's it. The country's too big. It's not governed by the president. It's
right.
there to allocate resources, and the pie is so big, no one's going to get in there and shrink the pie. And it's a failed experiment. The United States was never meant to be 400 million people administered over an empire size. That whole
right.
limited government stuff was meant to be 13 colonies. You see, you had trouble once they tried to expand beyond 13 colonies. You had the slave states and all, because there's too much diversity within the country, and they didn't have national taxes. That was an issue back then too. Who was going to pay for the war that was up to the states? So they solved all these problems of the limited by making the government big to manage a big country. Well, then they pretend it's a constitutional government. It's not. Not when you pay most of your taxes to the federal government and very little to your state, and then it doesn't work in the way where you have representation, because you don't on a national level at all. You get to vote for president, so what?
Yeah, people, and the argument when somebody says, well, you can change things with your vote, that's a bunch of crap.
Of course.
Guys, like,
and what voting is? It's basically trying to enforce your will over somebody else's. I want this, and I want you to pay for it, so I'm going to go vote. So take that. And then, see, you're not playing fair. If you don't respect the majority vote, then even if it's unjust. I mean, they voted for slavery.
Yep.
Were you supposed to be wrong if you disagree with that? Yeah, because you're going against the principles of democracy. 50% of the people voted for slavery, so it must be okay. And that's the rationale that they use. Well, and you got to vote. I mean, come on.
So you voted, and
sore loser.
Yeah. Now your candidate didn't get in, and so now we're stuck with whatever we're stuck with, which is this is the continuing trend, which is nothing's going to change. Remember the last time when they basically said that they were, that the whole freeze on jobs and everything. How'd that work out, Louis? How did that go? And what would happen if we actually had some sort of austerity in this country? That can't happen. It can't.
Well, they try to give you a taste of it. The austerity would mean cutting out bureaucracy and agencies that you don't need, that are actually more harmful than hurtful. Instead, the few things that the people actually like about the government, like the national parks, they close those down. They say, see what happened if you get into austerity? You won't be able to go on a picnic. That's false, too, because eventually there'd be places people go on a picnic. It's just that they'd already made their plans to go to the national park.
Yeah, and the irony is that when they create all these regulators, right? So there's more government agency to regulate more of the businesses, right? More regulation on the businesses that are already suffering because of this manipulated economy, a low interest rate environment that helps only the rich. So these businesses can't grow. So they can't create jobs, Hillary. They don't have the capital. They don't have the wherewithal. You're fining them to death with regulations because everything they do is a fine. Okay,
it's a punishment for them not creating jobs, Ryan. It's punishment.
It is.
They're out there pretending to create jobs, and they're not, so she wants to punish them.
And so you could see real quickly where a startup company could go broke real fast, because if they get into an industry that's heavily regulated, they could be out of business in no time, because they wouldn't have the money to pay the fine, literally.
Unless they can go public, even though they haven't made money, and then they can buy their influence. See, that's what will happen with companies like Uber. Well, they'll try to out-regulate them, but then they'll have enough money so they can support lobbying efforts, and then everybody's happy because the lobbyists get paid, the politicians get paid, they change the legislation, they say, see, it's a win-win.
Yeah, but and what we don't hear about, and see, this is media-driven, is that everybody thinks that there's all these successful startups out there, right? Like everybody's like Facebook, and the reality is they're not. It's probably 1 in 100 actually make it through, and actually, and probably it's more than that. It's probably 1 in 100,000 that actually gets through and actually.
But not because of the market, but because of the government.
Correct. and
I mean, the companies aren't going to make it because of the market. I mean, you can't expect every company that starts a business is going to be successful. You have to have but if it turns out that the ones that do the best are the ones that have the best political favors, that's a problem.
Well, and that's also what's happened over a period of time is that there's now crowdsourcing, right? And there's all these private fundings taking place where anybody can start a business that's not reliant on the government. The government doesn't like this, by the way. They don't like the fact that these companies can be funded by just the general public, right?
Well, not by the preferred bankers is basically what it is.
Right. And, there's all of these arguments out there that actually our economy could actually turn around if interest rates were to rise. Now, there is some legitimacy to that because if interest rates rise, okay, then the retirees, the savers would actually make more money on their bank accounts. There would now be more interest, more like return for somebody to take a risk. So banks would be more willing to lend to people business-wise. Now,
you're talking about encouraging capital formation through savings, and then they take their savings, they reinvest the interest, and eventually they have enough money to go invest and make that capital productive instead of just giving people money and hoping that the rich people spend it. I mean, that's what's weird when they talk about trickle down. She's in favor of trickle down. That's what QE is. That's what low interest rates are. And in fact, Nancy Pelosi once described raising the minimum wage in a trickle-down fashion. She said, economists will tell you the food stamps are the best thing for the economy. They get that money and they spend it. Well, that's trickle-down. They spend it, and it trickles down into the economy.
Yep.
But it hasn't produced anything. I mean, use the logic of them. Minimum wage should be $15. No, it shouldn't be. It should be $150, and food stamps shouldn't be for a few people. It should be for everybody. Because if it's that good, give everybody money and pay everybody $300 an hour.
Well, why don't we just pay everybody $100,000?
Why not?
I don't understand.
Why not 200? Well, where do they come up with these numbers? Inflation 2%. That's the right number. A little inflation is good.
A little inflation is good, right? Yeah, and I mean it's just like you have.
When do you know the difference? When is it harmful? Well, we know arithmetic. We can tell. You don't know.
Well, the one thing that I get asked all the time is like, okay, so you talk a lot about like how that we're kind of stuck. We're in this catch-22 now, and really, yeah, I mean, there's not much that's going to change, guys. Reality is that they can't pay the interest on the debt if interest rates go up, and that's the real reason why they won't go up.
That's the real reason. Yep.
And that's the real reason.
And the stock market would go down. So for the public, it's basically a public-private thing. For the public, they need the stock market. For the private, they need the stock market. For the public, they need the government, and that's what they're supporting.
Right. So we have a low interest rate environment. The real estate prices, there's some markets that are actually doing well. They dipped down again. We've had some refinance booms all of a sudden, but they're few and far between. These are typically people that have some equity in their house now, probably have stable jobs. But more in the major
the last people you need to help are people that need to pay a little less money on their mortgage when they have a $700,000 home and they make $250,000. Wonderful, they get a break. I'm not against anyone getting a break, but they don't need the break, really.
Yeah, and and it's what's terrible about it too, Lewis, is that all the people that did buy and then they're upside down and they have no chance of getting their rate lowered, and then you have the people. We have Generation Z coming in here at 13 to 17 years old, able to take advantage of interest rates. Really pissed me. You know what I mean?
Gen Z, here they come.
I don't understand that. It's really not fair to the rest of us. But hey, that's where we're at. I mean, we should definitely probably set up some sort of seminar with Hillary and Gen Z together, like that. That would be magical. I have a feeling. And you should probably.
Go ahead.
You should promote you should promote your new program there too.
Phones for homes. I need a government grant though to start that. I can't do that without a government grant. So I need the homes for phones government grant.
Yeah, I'll put you in touch with my economics professor Dave Brett. Maybe he could get you started on that.
Hey, by the way, has he been sworn in as what happened? Did he win he won the primary against Cantor, right?
Yeah, well, remember, what's his name backed out. Like, he took his post temporarily, and now he's getting ready to run against, what's his name? Let's see if I can.
The Democrat. Is he supposed to win, though?
Brett's supposed to win. He's got some major backing from a lot of heavy hitters.
I'm sorry, your professor's supposed to win? The guy beat Cantor supposed to win? So we might be able to get him on the show then.
Oh, for sure.
Of course, he'll come, but he'll never come back after we ask him questions. I'm sure he would have loved the questions when he was a professor.
No, you know what I'd have to do, Lewis? I'd have to, not lie to him, but stretch the truth and give him some questions that we might ask him and then not ask those questions.
Yeah, and then tell him he's not allowed to listen to the prior shows.
Yeah, and then also I'll have to go back and I'll pull up our interview that I did with him probably some three years ago, and then I'll say, hey, do you remember when you said this? No, I won't do that to him. But
you should. I mean, see, the reason you won't do that, Ron, is exactly the reason why reporters don't do it. They don't want to appear that they're being ungentlemanly or that they won't get invited back. But the point is, once you're a public figure, you're not trying to embarrass the man. You're trying to keep him accountable to his point of view as to why you elected him. So it is perfectly reasonable to say, do you remember when you said this? And he's saying something else now. That's exactly what a free media is supposed to do. But now free media is just meant to prove whatever they say or to act as an amplifier for what they say.
Well, I would ask him the tough questions, but I know what he would do. He wouldn't answer them because he's going to say that he's a politician now. Correct. He's a politician now, and he would not recall our previous conversation.
And even if you played it for him.
Yeah, I mean, and then that's why it's the biggest joke the way we view the government and politics and politicians now. I mean, it's obviously these people can't run a country. We don't have anything in order. It's getting much worse. But we have a low interest rate environment, guys. We've got a high stock market. We've got Gen Z. We've got Hillary. I mean, there's a lot to be thankful for right now.
Well, that's true, Ron. I mean, especially, yes, Thanksgiving coming up. Thank you for pointing out how well we're blessed. And, Hillary really is a national she is a national treasure.
But there's bright things on the horizon because we do have phones for homes. Anybody that's interested in that program,
if I can get a grant.
Well, yeah, but you know what? We'll start crowdfunding that right now. I can we'll go on Indiegogo or one of these crowdsourcing sites and see if anybody is interested in funding this, and we'll start that way.
Small goals, phones for homes.
If you are tuning into this podcast right now, send us a message. We'll get you some information on a page that we'll put up at a later date, and we'll leave it there, Lewis. Thanks again for coming on, guys. Thank you,
Thanks,
Lewis.
Ryan.
If you'd like to give your blog so people can check out your blog posts that you do every week, that'd be great.
Sure, it's smallgold.com, SMAULGLD.com. Please check it out. It's got stories every week on the economy, the Fed, gold, silver, and real estate. So please check it out, smallgold.com.
Awesome. Thanks, Lewis. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back again next week. In the meantime, download, subscribe, share on iTunes. You search Real Estate 360, and you can also stream it live at realestate360live.com. Take care. Until next time.